Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulil Kareem. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Fiqh al Muamalat online course. And today's topics is basically a continuation of the discussion that we have started, and we are still with Gharar. We have started talking about the main parameters of Gharar, and we have covered the first parameters, which is the Gharar should exist in the exchange contract, not in the Tabara contract. The second one, or the second parameters, which is the two-day session, is basically the Gharar should be excessive, meaning in order for the Gharar to impact the validity of the contract, that Gharar we are talking about should be excessive Gharar. And as a result of that, we have to understand that Gharar is divided into three classifications. The first one is the excessive Gharar. Number two is the medium Gharar. Number three is the minor Gharar. So basically the one that impacts the validity of the contract is the first one. The excessive Gharar will impact the validity of the contract, whereby the medium Gharar and the minor Gharar will not impact the validity of the contract, which means that the Gharar may exist in the financial transactions. So it is it is impossible to have transactions where it is free from Gharar, whereby you have a zero Gharar. It's very hard to get that, as we mentioned before, especially within these very complex environments, very diverse market, different buyers from different countries within the international trade with a very complex equipments, machines and product and a commodity and food processing and manufacturing and so on and so forth. So definitely you may end up in a kind of Gharar. Then it depends whether it falls under very excessive, which impact the validity of the contract, and it could be categorized under the medium or a minor, and as a result of that, the contract will maintain its soundness and validity, and we keep it as a Sharia compliance. So let's start first on the excessive Gharar. Excessive Gharar is basically the Gharar is dominant of the contracts. So it becomes distinctive features of the contract, whereby in the most of the time it will lead to dispute, meaning that that kind of lack of informations and uncertainty may lead to dispute between the contracting party. And this one, as we mentioned, it could be that the price you don't know, it's unknown price or unknown specifications. When you are buying, for example, a house, when you are buying a car, when you are buying a mobile, when you are buying a commodity or a machine. So there is the lack of information is very high. The lack and the uncertainty, the degree of uncertainty is very high, which creates a kind of ambiguity and doubtness whether the contract will be successful or not, whether it will be concluded or not, whether the delivery will take place or not, because many missing informations either in the price or in the commodity or in the delivery or in the offer and acceptance. One of the traditional example, of course, before that, the determinations of the Gharar being excessive or otherwise, it is left to the industry, it is left to the market, it is left to the Urf. The Urf will determine, especially on the middle one, maybe the excessive Gharar, you can detect it. The very minor Gharar, you can detect it, but the medium one, whether you push it up to the excessive or pull it down to the minor, or you keep it as it is medium, will be basically left to the market, to the industry, to the panel of experts who determine the level of degree and the risk and the level of uncertainty in the transaction. And among the examples, traditional examples given by the Sharia scholars, in addition to the example we gave, is, for example, selling unripe fruits, or selling fruits before their readiness, before their perfections, without stipulating the conditions of harvesting that fruits. So that one basically, there is uncertainty in the transactions, and there is a high degree of gharar because the fruits are not ready, fruits are not perfect, the fruits are not ready for harvesting, and as a result of that, you purchase them, then you wait. So you don't know how much and how long you are going to wait, and you don't know whether the fruits would be ready, ripe for harvest or crop or not, and that one may be exposed to some kind of floods, to some kind of virus, to kind of enforced circumstances in the environment that may basically destroy or damage the fruits, and as a result of that, dispute may take place. So normally, when it comes to the fruit, Sharia scholars agree that if you purchase fruits before their perfections, before their readiness, you have to proceed directly with the harvest. But you can't buy and wait. You cannot buy and wait unless, of course, it's in the context of salam, or, for example, you make an undertaking, for example, to purchase, then you wait until the fruits are ready, so upon their perfections, or when they're about to be ready, so you can purchase and proceed with the transactions and proceed with the harvesting of the fruits or the vegetable or whatever commodity that you have. Among also the traditional example given is that a contract of commodity of salam for a commodity which is normally not available upon its delivery. Because as you know, when it comes to commodities and fruits, there are some fruits and commodity which have season. For example, winter or summer or specific months because based on the four season. So normally, let's say this fruits or vegetable or commodity, normally it is ready and available in the summer. Then you do a salam contract where the delivery is in the winter. So here scholars mention that that this one could be a form of gharar, because when the delivery comes, the sellers will fail to deliver the commodity because the commodity is not available at that particular time. Of course, with today business transactions and warehousing and inventory and storage, most of the fruits and the vegetable are available throughout the year. But again, here we are talking about possibly a fresh commodities, so the risk could be there, and the uncertainty may impact the what's so-called the validity of the contract. This is why when you go, for example, for a salam commodity, you have to determine the time of delivery whereby the commodity normally, according to the expert, is available at that time, so the sellers will be able to deliver the commodity. So this is on the excessive gharar. Now the minor gharar, which is very tolerated, normally it doesn't lead to dispute, and basically the contracting party tend to forgive and don't rise issues and problems as a result of that lack of information. Some of the traditional example given that if the person, for example, buys a house, so the foundation is part of the house, but you can't see the foundation. So it's difficult also to see the foundation. So basically you buy it without looking at the foundation. Some of the fruits, for example, you can't see it unless you broke the shell, but basically you buy it within the shell. So this again, a kind of gharar that could be tolerated. You contract on a lease per month, and the month could be 30, could be 29, could be 31. So there is a kind of uncertainty in the length of the month. That one also could be a kind of gharar that could be also tolerated. One of the also example that we experience most of the time is, for example, in the food when you go and eat. You know, when you go to a restaurant, especially in Malaysia, they will ask you, you know, makan dulu. So you have to eat first, meaning that you take the plate, you take the rice, you take maybe one piece of chicken, then you take some vegetable. Then if you want to pay, you'll ask you makan dulu, go and sit and have your meal first. But the problem is you don't know how much. Of course, we are not talking here about the food with menu. You know, if you have the menu, the price is very clear. But we are talking about nasi shampoo, you know, the mixed rice, whereby you just pick up from whatever is available a mix of variety of food. Then you don't know how much is the price, but yet they ask you to eat first. Then when you start eating, he will come and make the bill without any offer and acceptance and put the bill next to you. And if he's busy, he will not come to you at all. Then you go to the counter and you describe the food. You know, you describe what you have eaten, meaning that you have consumed food without knowing how much is the price. So there is a lack of the amount of the food that you are eating. But again, this is a kind of gharar which is tolerated and accepted, because there is a tendency to tolerate the differences in the amount, because in overall you have an idea how much you know, the meal could be, you know, the range, and it could be some differences of 1 ringgit, 2 ringgit, 3 ringgit, and so on and so forth, plus minus, that you may tolerate that difference and don't make it as a cause to dispute with the seller. This is a kind of gharar also which is tolerated. Also in our practice, for example, we go to in Ramadan, for example, or even not Ramadan, in a dinner or a lunch, you go to the restaurants, especially hotels, then you go for a buffet. So you pay a specific amount, so the price is known, but the goods are not known, meaning how much you are going to eat, what kind of food you are going to eat, how long you are going to stay in the restaurant. I think all these are unknown. So there is a kind of jahala, there is a kind of a gharar, whereby price is known, but what you are going to eat is not known. So this is, again, someone may eat a few pieces, the other one maybe eat a lot. It depends, you know, of the piece and the space and the size of the stomach of each person. And again, there is a degree of tolerance between the buyer and the seller, between the person who eats. He may eat a lot, he may eat a little bit, and tolerance is exchanged between the buyer and the seller. Other example also could be given in the tolerance of the gharar is a public bath. You know, public bath, sometimes, you know, you pay a specific amount, then you go and use the facility, like for example the shower, the sauna, and so on and so forth. But you don't know how much water you are going to consume, how much time you are going to consume, and how much time you are going to stay. But the price is unknown, but the facility and the benefit consumed is unknown. There is, again, there is a degree of tolerance between the two parties. So this is some examples which shows Sharia how flexible in dealing with the business and financial transactions, that it could be some gharar, it could be some uncertainty, but as long as it is tolerated, it is moderated, it is a medium within the what's so-called understanding of the market, within the practice of the market, whereby people may tend to tolerate and forgive each other, and doesn't bring the issue to a stage of dispute. Sharia will basically allow this kind of gharar. Now, the other gharar that we would like to talk is basically the medium gharar. Medium gharar is again left to the market. Like, for example, the traditional example given by the Sharia scholars, a fixed mudaraba. Mudaraba, if it is fixed, so it may bring a degree of gharar, and it is also disputed among the Sharia scholars. The ju'ala as well, which is a kind of binding promise on the promisor to give a prize, to give a award for the person who finds something lost for him. I lost my car, the one who will find it, I will give him 10,000. I lost my kid, the one who will find it, I will give him 20,000, and so on and so forth. So this kind of a prize given, an award given to find something for a person. So it is a binding on the promisor. So the person may spend time, he may find, he may not find. So there is a lack and uncertainty in this kind of transactions, but yet this kind of engagements is allowed by the what's so called Sharia scholars. And as I mentioned, this is again an indication of the flexibility of Sharia in dealing in a business transaction. Just to sum up, so the one of the parameter of Gharar is the Gharar should be excessive. If it is excessive and the degree of uncertainty is very high, which may raise issues and disputes, so this one will have an impact on the permissibility of the contract and make it invalid. But if the Gharar and the uncertainty fall within the second category, which is a medium Gharar, or a minor Gharar, that Gharar is acceptable and tolerated by Sharia and will have no impact on the permissibility of the contract. With that, thank you very much and see you soon, inshallah, in the coming session. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.